Crazy will happen. Okay, noting the time and the presence of a quorum, we're actually already called to session. We came out of executive session earlier. So I will start this meeting. The first item, as always, is citizens' concerns. Is there anybody here who has any concerns that are not otherwise on the agenda? Our large audience. Okay. No, thank you very much. Chairman's update. So we only met a week ago, but we're back again because, as a reminder, next Monday is Columbus Day, and so town offices will be closed on that day. Some upcoming events. Their Recreation is hosting their Monster Bash party Friday, October 16th from 7 to 9 p.m. at NARA. It's $3 per person, and it looks like a very fun event. I also want to announce that the school committee is looking for community, I believe it's 2 community volunteers for their school capital and space planning committee. There should be more information on the school committee's website, but if you have any questions about that, you can also direct them to the school committee chair, Christina Richlick. And there are upcoming, also at the schools, upcoming flu clinics for all residents starting tomorrow, so October 6th, 7th, and 8th, from 2:45 to 6 p.m. at the high school health office, and these are hosted by the Acton Nursing Services, which we will hear more about tonight, so you'll get another reminder that that is happening. I think that's it from my end, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, and first of all, apologies because I came in this morning at 6 a.m. from a flight from hell and not functioning on much sleep right now. But part of the good news of that trip was that I did attend the International City Management Association annual meeting in Seattle, and Acton, along with our brethren communities and Crosstown Connect, received a community award from the International City Management Association for the Crosstown Connect transportation program. So, you know, it's a real honor to be recognized for a program from your peers, from managers all over, not only the United States, but internationally. So that was a real honor, and, you know, to be there. So it's very, you know, it was a very well-attended conference. I think we had 5,000 people from all over the world, and the last day was when we received our award. So we don't actually physically have an award at the moment. I think they'll be mailing it to us at some point. But as I said, after that, we spent a few days in Oregon, both at Crater Lake and on the coast, and actually drove through Roseburg, Oregon, the day of the shooting. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't know there was a shooting that had happened until after we went through the town. But you know, clearly raises a lot of issues about you know, what's going on in our society. So that's all I have.
Okay, it's a little before 7:10, but it's not an official hearing, so why don't we have our presentation from Minuteman. So if you guys want to come up, you can just pull up the seats up here if you'd like, if that's easier, or you can do it from there.
You're with me, and I can speak to the slides. I assume you have copies of the slides.
We do, and just when you speak, if you could just press the button to make sure the microphone's on, and if you want to introduce everybody who will be speaking here tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Pam Norris is your representative on the Minuteman School Committee from Acton. Ford Spalding is the chairman of our school building committee. He's also the representative from the town of Dover. And Kevin Mahoney, our assistant superintendent of finance, is with us. We have a lot of slides. We're not going to go through every one in detail. I want to leave some time for questions. Well, basically, I just want to remind you that Minuteman was established as a regional school district back in the 70s. We're one of 26 regional vocational technical schools, and we have 16 member towns. We deliver robust academics and a powerful career and technical skills, giving our students a competitive edge in the new economy. We link college and career. When our kids go to school, post-secondary education, they go with a purpose. And we have data and research that shows how well they do in post-secondary education. The Massachusetts model is widely known across the country and really throughout the world, and it's the envy of the nation in many ways. What we're going to talk about today is our project, and we'll explain why this is the most educationally beneficial option for our students. It's the most affordable option as well, and it safeguards our accreditation. Basically, where we are with the project right now, we began the feasibility study in 2009. We are the longest-running feasibility study in the history of the MSBA. When we were there in August, one of the MSBA Board of Directors says, "Ed, you've been with us 6 years, and we've only been in existence 10. So we've had, as you know, quite a challenge with 16 communities, as well as trying to find the best option to serve our students and our member towns. We've given a lot of preliminary estimates. I'm going to mention up front that our website has a lot of information on it that's up to date. It's updated daily in some cases about the project and where we're at. This past spring, we held public meetings in 15 of our 16 communities. We surveyed all the participants, and 89% of those who attended favored the new school option. On August 6th, the Board of Directors of the MSBA unanimously endorsed our preferred solution, which is a smaller school than we have now, with 2 academies for 628 students. We discussed with them at length our academy model and how it allows us to integrate vocational and academic education. They moved us into Module 4, schematic design, which we are in now. Earlier this fall, we had a poll conducted by DAPA Research, Dave Paleogis, who's a nationally known pollster, and we asked him to gauge the perceptions and attitudes towards vocational technical education in our 16 member towns. We worked with the Office of Political Campaign and Finance to ensure that the questions were neutral. We also checked with the State Board of Ethics and how it was conducted. And the poll showed that 68.5% of the district voters supported the new construction of a Minuteman High School. Only 8.5% that were polled were actually against a new building. This is an overview of our educational program plan. We have a Life Sciences and Services Academy, an Engineering, Construction, and Trades Academy, and then Shared House, which we offer programs to all students. This model is composed of 16 programs offering 21 career majors. And we have some new programs there that are pretty exciting. We're adding advanced manufacturing. We're also adding multimedia engineering, which is sometimes termed in other states a technical theater program. And we've had a lot of interest and excitement about that to date. This is hard to see up there, but this is our entire campus. We have about 66 acres here. This line is the border between Lexington on this side and Lincoln on this side. This blank space that you see up there is where our current building is, and the new construction would be entirely in Lincoln. We would not have any access roads to this small rural street here, but we'd improve this main access to the building and maintain our Lincoln exit, which is all on property that's been owned by the National Park. We were granted an easement 50 years ago, and so this land is owned by the National Park. This land is owned by Eversource. This is a variety of abutters, but this is our only road frontage of that 66 acres. And 128, as you know, runs right around over here. This is a profile of the building. It's much lower profile than we currently have now. We're trying to adapt it to the topography of the area. So it steps up, and there's 2 levels here, 2 levels down in this academy, which is our Life Sciences Academy, and 3 levels in the shared house. And you'll note over here on the Life Sciences Academy, which houses environmental technology as well as horticulture and biotechnology, we have a green roof planned that will also be a lab for the students in the work that they do. This is the lower level. Again, this is the Life Sciences Academy with the 7 programs located there. The main level, which houses the gym, an auditorium, and stage area. as well as the larger shops in the Trade and Engineering Academy. And this is the second floor of the Life Sciences, which houses academics that are related to that academy. And like the upper level of the other academy, the academics related to that academy are there. So the academy model is a true integration, that we'll have science, math, and English teachers assigned to each academy. That's where they will live. Some of them will teach courses to students from both academies, depending on the curriculum, but we have AP classes in science and English and math that will be available to students throughout the academy. And there are a couple of vocational technical programs located on the second floor. This is Design and Visual Communications and Web and Programming Design, and then the art program will be adjacent to that as well. Is that a seismic thing going on with the... and this is, at the time, a conception of the profile of the building. The main entrance is here. Due to security reasons, this will be the only entrance for the most part. All students and visitors will have to come through this area, and then they'll be able to access the building from that one place. There's a lot of fun things about the new design that I'd love to talk more about, but I'm trying to stay within the time, and I forgot to hit start on that. So MSBA, just in Module 4, we're doing schematic design. On November 17th, there'll be a joint meeting between our school building committee and the school committee to approve the schematic design, which will have come back from the estimators by that time. In about 12 days, we'll be sending the schematic design to 2 independent estimators, and they will do their work over 3 weeks, and then we have a couple of weeks to make any adjustments, and we'll be submitting on December 1st. In order to make the Board of Directors meeting on January 27th. And at that point in time, we expect the board to approve us into Module 5, which is local approval. And then Module 6, 7, and 8 spill on after that, and we are anticipating occupying a new building on or before September 2020. Funding, the total project cost is not to exceed $145 million, 40% minimum state reimbursement of eligible costs, and obviously the estimators will help us determine what's eligible and ineligible. But we've been in the pipeline so long that we've been grandfathered into the original level of minimum reimbursement, which is 40%. Now you may know that the reimbursement is 31%. So that equates to about $58 million from the state, another $87 million from our communities. We've estimated that it's an annual debt service of about $4 million. The annual impact on a Acton median homeowner is about $32.32 a year, or about $6.78 per $100,000 worth of valuation would be the annual estimated property tax impact. People ask us why that is so much money. You have to look at constructing a vocational technical school. Nationwide, it's about 50% more expensive than an academic or a comprehensive high school. We're basically building 2 schools in one. We have a full academic staff as well as a full vocational technical staff. In order to recruit industry experts from the field into education, our salaries for our vocational technical teachers tend to be higher. Chapter 74, which is that body of law that governs vocational technical education, actually has minimum square foot requirements per pupil, as well as the sizes of the shops that are being offered. And those are driven primarily by safety and health requirements. There are major equipment needs, as you can imagine, in a vocational technical school. And our infrastructure within that portion of the school that delivers that curriculum really needs to meet current industry standards. And the watchword for our process over the last 5 years has been to design and build a flexible environment that can change over the years in accord with the changes of the workplace and the changes with how business is operating, so that our students can be well prepared for what they will experience when they go directly to work, which is about a third of our students, or they go on to post-secondary education, which is about 62 to 65%. So when you look at what other vocational schools have been built recently, there haven't been a lot. Essex Agricultural and Technical High School opened last year, at about $135 million. Putnam Vocational Technical High School in Springfield opened a few years ago. They actually opened bids during the recession, and were able to come in under budget in that school by quite a bit. In today's dollars, we're in line with those, although we're going to have to face probably a higher interest rate on our bond, as well as higher construction costs, given the improvement in the economy. But we will be in the range of square foot that's designated by the MSBA. We're not exceeding that. We're working really hard to design something that comes in under budget. Enrollment, constant question is, how do you fill a school of 628? You know, ideally we want to fill it with all member district community students, but we think that's going to take 5 to 7 years. So our budgeting and our projections are based on an enrollment of about 520 students from our 16 member towns and 100 students from out of the district, down from about 300 students that are out of district right now. So there's still some stigma in attending a vocational technical school, although we just completed a survey of our middle school guidance counselors, which might challenge that statement. The Minuteman option has been gone through a time, I think, of confusion among families. We've had a lot of anecdotal information about parents getting erroneous information from folks about the Minuteman option being available to them. Our aging facility is certainly not attractive when it compares to some of the beautiful schools that we have in our district, some very high-performing partner schools. And there's been some political discord and questions about Minuteman for the last several years that have had an impact on families. I mean, we've heard that from our parents. You know, some of them even asking us, are you going to be around in 5 years? If my student's interested in your school, is it going to be there? Those are hard things to overcome. So in the short term, these challenges are real, and we're seeing the impact of that. But mid to long term, you know, 3 to 7 years out there, we see a lot of positives with enrollment. Certainly a new facility is important, but it's not the only thing. We really need to get the word out about what we do, how we add value to a student's career pathway. We have some exciting new offerings, which I talked about. We have rigorous and relevant academic offerings, including AP classes. We have a new emphasis on trying to talk about the opportunities for young women in STEM occupations. We've had 2 STEM camps for young girls in middle school. Our STEM camp just won a national award in the mentoring area, and our students went out and received that award in Louisville, Kentucky in the fall. We're improving the partnership between Minuteman and our local partner schools. We're taking a new approach to marketing where we've hired a national expert who has had a lot of experience in improving enrollment in a number of different areas of the country, and it's all around finding the right student for the right program for the right reasons. We believe we're close to ending some of this political discord and uncertainty about the future. We've also, well, I won't get off track here, but we've had NESDEC has done 2 enrollment studies for us, one way back when in 2008 and 9, when we were preparing our statement of interest for the MSBA. We just had that data pool revisited by NESDEC based upon some reports to me from some of our larger sending communities that they were seeing a real increase in students in the middle school in Belmont, Arlington, Lexington, to an extent in Concord. The NESDEC reaffirmed that that was true, so an adjustment was made in the enrollment projections that MSBA reviewed and accepted. We've been featured all around the country. We're getting calls from all around the country to visit Minuteman. And we really believe these enrollment goals are realistic. On our website, just last week, I put up there the NESDEC 3-page summary. And the assumptions that were made that brought us to about 580 in-district students by the year 2018-19 were very, very conservative. We were assuming a 0.1% increase per year in the rate of 8th grade applications. 0.1% per year. We were also assuming just a 1% increase in applications from young women. And when you combine those two things and just looked at the increase in the middle school, it showed that Minuteman easily could meet that 525 projection that we made, and we're expecting it to go beyond that. And that data is on our website. And this is just, MSBA did state very clearly a couple of things around enrollment. They would not support a school of less than 600. And this has been tried out in several other communities across the Commonwealth, where you see 8th grade being combined with small high schools to get to that 600 number. But MSBA was very clear that they supported this enrollment and really wouldn't participate in a school of less than that. There's been talk about if we do nothing, there's some very critical changes that need to be made in the building. If we go it alone and say no to the MSBA, $58 million, our accreditation is certainly in jeopardy. Our enrollment would continue to decline, I believe, and we would still have over $100 million worth of repairs to be made on our own, which would probably take 10 years. But when you hit a certain part, a tipping point, you have to bring your whole building up to code. We projected that would be in year 3, 4, and 5, where we'd be hit with $35 to $55 million worth of repairs. And remember, these repairs do nothing to serve the educational program plan. They do nothing to enhance the academy model. These repairs do nothing to enhance the integration of vocational and technical curriculum. And we've had this experience back in June 2011. You may recall that our trades hall was shut down. We had to spend $500,000 in about 6 weeks to open the school that fall. So how do we get local approval when we get to Module 5? There are a couple of options. We can go the traditional town meeting route, where all 16 towns have to approve it. Some of them would have debt overrides. If every town had a debt override, we would have to run the table 32 and 0. Or we could go under 16N in a single day, have a district-wide ballot, where the voters, the citizens who would be paying for the school, would have a chance to weigh in. And that would be an aggregate vote. We would have the election throughout the district on the same day for 8 hours. And by the end of that day, we would know if we had a project or not. No decision has been made in regards to what option we're taking at this point, and the school committee continues to discuss both options. And as I've said, we're designing the smallest school possible to keep all those program offerings intact, to keep our academics intact. We're trying to secure the largest possible state reimbursement rate. We're planning for fewer out-of-district students. And the big thing here, number 4 bullet, is we secured new regulation that even those 100 students from outside the district, their communities are going to be required to pay an out-of-district capital fee. These regulations went into effect in March of this 2015. And that was a major concern that we heard throughout the district over the last 5 years, and it's been accommodated. I'm not sure how comfortable everybody is with the state making regulations and following through on them, but we're continuing to work with our legislators to make sure that this out-of-district capital fee is applied to our project in a fair way and in a way that we can count on in our revenue projections. So, as I've said, we have until June 30th, 2016 to secure Module 5. That was also made clear by the MSBA in writing and verbally. They've been very patient with us. So we need to act over the next few months, because the acting later is just going to cost us more money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll start with any questions from board members. Janet.
Thank you, Superintendent Quillen. I was actually one of three of us who were at the breakfast meeting last Friday, and so a lot of this is very familiar. I also would add that Minuteman unfortunately came into existence too late for me. I'm old enough. I was at Lincoln Sudbury. We had shop and home ec, and home ec consisted of cooking and sewing, and girls were not allowed to take shop, and there were a number of us who were interested in that. So what we did instead was we joined the tech crew for the dramatic productions and learned how to. But my brother is somebody who certainly would have benefited from. He was a tinkerer, instinctive, and he eventually made his way into a profession that suited him, but it took a while. Anyhow, I do have some questions that are sort of following up on the discussion last Friday. One is about the bonding obligation. Somebody had told me that you have to have the district, the way it works, you have to have the district undertakes the obligation, but it's also the individual members of the district that are somewhat on the hook, and there's some concern among member towns that wish to withdraw that they're going to be on the hook for as long the duration of the bonding obligation with no possibility of modification. I don't know a whole lot about bonding, but I can't believe that if the district changes that you can't have some sort of amendment of the obligation, but I'm wondering if there is a way to modify it. It is
Sure.
sort of.
Yeah, the way, as you know, we tried to get some revisions into the regional agreement for almost 5 years. And that was one of the reasons we put aside some of the pursuit with the MSBA. And the MSBA said, okay, go try to fix your regional agreement. The way the agreement currently reads, if a community was to exit under the current agreement, they would be obligated for the full debt that was in place at the time that they actually left. As you know, Wayland has voted at their town meeting to withdraw, but that now needs to be approved by all the other communities. And one community says no, and that action to withdraw is nullified and they're still in the district. I think the opportunity to revise the district will reoccur once we get through this local approval and the bonding. I don't think there's anything that prevents the school committee nor the 16-member towns who would have to approve a new regional agreement to make some accommodations for people who want to withdraw, and that's approved in an appropriate manner. I don't think it's an absolute that they would be on the hook for 30 years. Right now, the bar to get out and the process is very, very difficult. And from what I hear from some of the selectmen, I believe there might be an opportunity once we get through the building project. Everybody understands what their costs are, what their options are too. Because it's not only the 16 towns that have to approve it, the commissioner has to approve it. And the commissioner has clearly stated he's not going to approve people just exiting a district to get out of a financial obligation. They have to have a plan in place to provide high-quality vocational technical education for their students. And so I'm hoping that the study committees that are emerging and that have emerged, and I know the one in Sudbury and the one in Boxborough, and I know the one in Needham, have had as their number one concern, how are we going to serve students? And that needs to be at the forefront, not exiting to get out of a financial obligation.
Okay, well, I'm sure that there will be discussion about that. I know I'm going to be going to the meeting of selectmen from the
In
member
Weston,
communities on the 28th, so I guess originally it wasn't supposed to be on the agenda, but, I think a lot of these side issues, which are complicated, are inevitably going to come up. Another question that came up at the meeting on Friday, and I think Mr. Mahoney was asked it, and was what the enrollment is for, well, I guess this year, because there had been some representation of a slight decline in enrollment overall, I guess encompassing non-member and member communities. But I was looking at the numbers I have. I've been following this issue for a couple of years, and I could see that there's sort of a slight decline. There was an increase, and then there was a decline, and it's hard for me to gather, kind of draw any conclusions from that. But I didn't know to what kind of decline are we talking about if
From
there is
last year
one.
to this year, I think we've had an overall decline of close to 10%.
which
Is that
is...
about right? 7%, yeah.
Okay, okay. And some of that may be because of the uncertainty, or people are graduating, obviously, and leaving, but what about incoming students?
The uncertainty for incoming students has been significant. I've heard more stories this year through my principal and our director of admissions than I ever had, about people actually calling a member district superintendent's office and the administrative assistant telling them, no, you can't go to Minuteman, you need to apply elsewhere. The superintendent corrected that immediately when it was brought to his attention. But you also have to remember, we're in the first budget year of going to a smaller school. We're in the process of closing vocational technical programs to adhere to the vote of the school committee back in June 28th of last year, I believe it was, to go to a smaller school. So the process of closing programs, we're required to offer that program until the student graduates. So we're closing programs, and then we have in this year's budget starting new programs. So it's a very challenging line to walk when we're trying to promote the school in a positive way, and there's still all this noise out there for parents and what they see on warrants of their town meetings and stuff. So it's going to be a challenge. I expect it's going to be a challenge next year as well, and then I see things changing. Once we get through this and we have an approved project with local approval, I think it's going to be just an easier task.
Okay, I have 3 quick questions because
I'll
my
answer
colleagues
them
are...
quickly.
Okay, it's the 66 acres, does this district own that?
Yes.
Okay. District-wide vote, is it 2/3 or is it a majority?
Simple majority.
Simple majority. And finally, what happens, I know that the school got a warning that put its accreditation at risk because of the condition of the building. What happens to that if you are able to get approval to move forward with the building project? It's going to be a few years before you actually
We
have
submitted
a compliant building.
a report October 1st to the NEASC, New England Accreditation Schools and Colleges, and they have verbally told us that if you can get local approval, we'll hold you on warning status. We will not go any further with removing you from your status. I think the next level is probation, is it? And then it's actually removed. So we're on warning status. But they have been very understanding and patient as well, and they see the progress, and so we're being held at warning, I believe, for the next school year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll let my colleagues weigh in.
Thanks.
I guess I have no questions about the program itself. It certainly is a necessary program, particularly in this economy. We need more people who have these kind of skills that you teach. I'm very impressed with the new program that you're putting together. I do have some questions about enrollment and how you get to 628. Last year, was it 390 students that you... Is that the figure I heard on Friday? You had 390 students?
Member district students, you mean?
I thought
No,
that was
last year we
total.
had 755 total students.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the actually 628 is less. I thought that was
Yes.
more students than
No.
you have currently. Okay.
No.
I mean, it's just that Acton's enrollment is declining, and I just noticed you have 35 students projected from Acton in 2020, I guess, when a new school opens. I think there are 26 now, or something like that. So
Sounds about right. I don't-
it's just with the declining enrollment, 35% increase in students. I mean, you do make a forceful presentation about your study on enrollment, so I guess I'll have to rely on that. But that is all projections that obviously might not play out in the long term. I mean, so.
Projections are projections, and you know, the folks in Arlington and Lexington and Belmont who went by projections a few years ago, where they have many more students now than they expected, are in, you know, wondering about projections as well. I can't guarantee them, but we're pretty confident with 3,600 to 4,000 eighth graders in our member district communities When you look at the average eighth grade application rate for schools like ours in suburban areas, it's closer to 11 or 12%, and we're at 4%. I think we have a lot of upgrowth potential there, and so does some folks that we brought in to help us with this. They see this as a target-rich environment, using their words.
You mentioned this marketing plan. What kind of, what's your ideas about the marketing as you go forward? I know the new school will clearly be a big attraction if that gets passed, but what kind of marketing are you looking at?
Well, for the last year, we've been working with Mark Perna. He's from Ohio. He's worked with a number of different schools like Minuteman throughout the country. And I guess the way I would describe it is it's not so much, producing new material or changing your website or coming up with fancy brochures. It's really an internal shift in the attitude of all the teachers and staff to get on the same page. We have a rallying point as a school. We need to find the right student for the right program for the right reasons. And how do we do that? How do we help a student understand what they're passionate about, what they love to do and do well? How do we put a purpose in their heart for why they're at our school? Because when that student leaves Minuteman, they see the light at the end of the tunnel. They know where they're going. We know that's the strength of our school, but we haven't been able to articulate that to the families that are very demanding in terms of the educational opportunities that are within our district. We're changing that, and we're doing that through a number of different activities that have already begun in terms of what we call showcase days, exploratory days for eighth graders. Tomorrow morning, George Clement, who's the director of admissions, begins his 45-minute presentation in all the middle schools. That's followed up with a letter home and a visit to the school. We also have put a deadline on applications. We have a preferred deadline for applications of February 1st now for member district communities. We're going to have to make decisions about our budget if enrollment goes one way or the other. So I think it's more of the way I would describe what we're doing in marketing is that we're doing it as a whole school, and we're very focused, very committed, and all singing off the same page. Every single staff member, whether they're a custodian, a cafeteria worker, a teacher, or an administrator. And we're starting to see some fruit from that in terms of how people respond to us when they come to different events, when they come to visit. It's not about the school. It's about what happens between a teacher and a student at our school. And that's what we're marketing. That's what we're trying to inform people of.
Okay, I certainly support the new school construction, given the alternatives particularly. Let me ask you about the process also. Does the administration have a recommendation you're making to the school committee about whether it'll be a district-wide vote or town meetings? Yes, I will. And what's your timeline for when the school committee should make this decision?
I'm going to be talking to them about my recommendations at the October 13th meeting. I know the November 17th meeting, we're going to have a lot more information about the very specific costs that will help the school committee inform its decision. I personally, the superintendent, believe that they need to make a decision in early December about what path they're going to take, because the earlier the better. I will mention that there are some other opportunities that are starting to take shape that could impact significantly the cost of the project to the 16 member towns in a positive way. I was asked to look at how we utilize the campus that remains once the new building is built, repurposing the building or developing that area of the campus in a way that serves the member towns with mission-compatible partners. I hope we're going to have some more information about that to share with the school committee and our member towns in that early December timeframe as well.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I had understood that was you needed that space for playing fields and outdoor activities or whatever. But
there's some potential for synergy between having playing fields there as well as some other partners.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just very few. When you plan to have fewer out-of-district students, that's changeable, right? If you decide, now I think we need more. And
Oh,
just do it.
sure. Yeah, we're going to make sure the school is full.
So, and that's where they would come from. That's why you would go to more out-of-district if.
It depends on the
population went up?
application rate and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have an admissions process that we're required to follow as well.
Okay. And have you ever considered combining with another type of program? I think this kind of program, vocational technical education, is so important. I mean, and the alternative is each school giving it separately, so it totally makes sense for us to have a regional school, good school. But have you ever looked at other kinds of education happening, like an alternative school or something,
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, that type of alternative school that I'm thinking that I grew up with in
Well,
Newton.
there are two things that we do now.
Less
that-
structured.
That may get at that. We
Yeah.
have, we work with the LABBB Collaborative, Lexington, Arlington, Belmont, Bedford, and Burlington, and they operate a program within Minuteman. They have their own staff there and stuff. The other program, I think, I'm always looking for ways to partner with our high schools and our middle schools to deliver high-quality career and technical education to where students can access it the best. Our middle school program with Acton Boxborough has 2 Minuteman middle school teachers teaching technology. That's a great example that's actually been noticed by this new administration and put out there as a model for other vocational technical schools. We also have something called Minuteman in the Morning program, where students from the high school, hopefully they're in 11th and 12th grade, they passed the MCAS, they're well on their way to meeting all their local graduation requirements. They can come to Minuteman for 2.5, 3 hours in the morning and just spend that time in a vocational technical training program. We only have about 17 or 18 students in that, most of them from Lexington, which is right around the corner. But that's a great opportunity as well for a non-traditional sort of access to our vocational technical programs. I've also had, informal discussions with some of the superintendents in my region about, well, what if Minuteman operated a web and programming design vocational program in Acton Boxborough High School? Our staff, our teachers, but your kids will be able to access it, and maybe kids from high schools that are closer, maybe Concord, Carlisle, or something like that. I'm very open to those sorts of ways to improve the access to the programs, because it's a big commitment for an 8th or 9th grader to leave their friends, come to a different school. Our school is very intense. They have to meet all the graduation requirements, everything, and a vocational technical education. They've got to work hard. They've got to be dedicated. They've got to have a pretty good idea by the end of their freshman year that they're in the right place. But I'm very open to those ideas.
I think it's an important
Me too.
step.
Thank you for coming tonight. I want to start by saying I've had the pleasure in this role and in a previous role of getting to visit Minuteman on a few occasions, and I'm always incredibly impressed by the school. And I'm also always envious of the students, because I think it's just wonderful knowing at that age what you want to do and being able to pursue that. It's incredible to hear from the students and to see them and how passionate they are about their future careers and getting to already be working on that and learning the actual skills they need. I went sort of the more traditional route, and I still don't know what I want to do with my life, so.
We have postgraduate programs for you and Janet.
So I'm always envious of it, and I've gotten to experience the wonderful things that come out of the culinary program. I used to work at the State House, and one of the sort of best days that all the staff knew at the State House was the school superintendent's day, because the culinary students from the different Voc-Tech schools would come and have made food, so we would all rushed down there to taste it. And it really is incredible. So I just want to highly encourage everybody here tonight and in our TV audience, if you haven't had the chance to visit Minuteman, to certainly go do that. And I think when you do that, you will also see the need for a new building. I wasn't mentioned as much tonight, but the size of the building now is much larger than, what you're looking for the new one. And I think right-sizing it for this district and for the needs of the students today just makes a lot of sense. I had a couple just questions before we do audience questions, et cetera. I think it was mentioned a bit, I was at the meeting on Friday about reaching out to some of the non-member towns, and I'm wondering if you've had reactions from them, because I think in part of this, again, in right-sizing it means there will be fewer spaces open for non-member communities, and with the plan to try to increase the number of students coming from within the district, again, that means fewer seats for them. So have you gotten any reactions from them about, how they perceive that, or how they're planning to deal with that if they start having students that, can't attend Minuteman?
I have gotten no official reactions. Okay. I think I can say that. I've gotten a lot of unofficial reactions from over the years. We also have to look at those communities that send us the most students, and really 2/3 of all of our out-of-district students today come from 4 cities. Mm-hmm. Watertown, Medford, Waltham, and Boston. 3 of those 4 have their own vocational technical programs. 1 does not, and that's Watertown. So we really, I'm hoping that once we get through this and they see that this building is really going to happen, that they'll be more open to having discussions about either joining the district or signing an intermunicipal agreement. Kevin and I have met with Watertown. We haven't met with them recently, but early on we met with them several times. And it's hard to describe. I don't understand why they're not more open to joining. I think they're afraid of costs, mm-hmm. but we're going to know those answers for them. So I think we're going to have more answers, more to talk about. And I really believe in Wellesley, there are probably 40 different communities, not all within driving distance of Minuteman, but east of Worcester, that do not have vocational technical education at all. Mm. And then you even have some communities like Newton, which has only 5 or 6 Chapter 74 vocational programs. Several years ago, they expressed a very strong interest in joining, keeping the programs they have in their city, but providing access to their kids. Mm-hmm. So I think once we get past Module 5, and this is real, we're going to see a little bit of more movement on the part of some of the officials in those towns around, our desire to expand the size of the district.
Right. Okay. And I agree, and I think as well, if the member towns can sort of figure out and push forward the acceptable changes to the regional agreement. I mean, our town meeting voted to approve it, and obviously not all the communities did, but I think that would provide a better, it would make it more likely that other towns would want to join. So I'm hoping we continue that route, and I know it's sort of on us as you guys gave it a shot for a number of years, and I don't blame you for putting it back on us, and I think it is our turn. One of the questions Janet asked kind of made me think of something, that if, one of the member towns, if the building passes and the bonding passes and they end up leaving the district, but then end up sending some students as now as an out-of-member district, would they have to pay for the bonding as well as the capital fee that you charge out-of-member districts, or would we hopefully figure that out in some?
That would be.
It would be quite fun. The disincentive.
Yeah, wouldn't go to that town meeting.
Yeah.
Well, in order for that to happen, I think we'd have to have a new regional agreement.
Right. Okay.
And if we're going to have a new regional agreement, we're going to have to know who's in and who's out, and give people who want to get out a pathway if it makes sense, and if they have another alternative for their kids. So I think that's sort of a hypothetical that would need to have a new district agreement at its core. And it could probably be worked through with, some of the creativity I've seen.
my other question is, I think it would be important for everybody to understand what happens if you do lose your accreditation. What's sort of the consequence of that? Does it mean Minuteman shuts down, or?
I think the consequence, we asked that question in our poll that Dave Paleogis ran for us. I forget how it was exactly worded, but it was something about, is accreditation important? 89% of the respondents strongly agreed that it was important. From a practical point of view, that in fact may be the most significant detriment of losing, is that the perception of the school changes dramatically. The superintendent in Burlington the last couple of years tried to get out of the NEASC accreditation thing because it's very expensive. Every 10 years you got to spend $50,000, $60,000 to have these people come. Then your annual dues are $5,000 or $6,000 even for our little school. The parents revolted in the fact that their Burlington High School was thinking about abandoning accreditation. It does, I don't know if it sends a flag in an admissions office, but it certainly does in the minds of parents and students who are applying to different places. But other than that, I don't think there is a practical financial negative impact of losing it. It's just, you've taken yourself out of a system that ensures quality. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would ask if I was a parent.
Okay.
Well, I am a parent, but and a grandparent.
So before I open up to audience questions, it's 7:40, so we have a hearing that I just want to read the legal notice for, and then we'll get back to this. So the Acton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on October 5th, 2015 at 7:40 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room at Town Hall on the application of Legend Cafe, 5A Spruce Street for a use special permit number 0818-2015-455, increased seating to 50, required under section 10.3 of the Acton zoning bylaw at 5A Spruce Street. The application and company plans can be inspected at Town Hall. Okay, we will come back to that when we're done with this. Okay, Franny, you've got one more question.
Yeah, so you had 755, and now we would only be able to have 628. Would that decrease come from the towns that aren't going to participate, or are people going to be turned away? And is there room for expansion?
Good, all good questions.
Suddenly,
Yeah, I know. Going to a smaller school is, was voted on by the school committee. We anticipate that the reduction in students will be from non-member communities. Your question about if you have more demand than you have space for, what's going to happen? We would give priority to member district community students, and then students from other communities that were not members would be turned away. And the room for expansion, there's limited room for expansion on that site because of the wetlands and the ledge on the far west side, although we are trying to shape the building in such a way that you could easily go north or west, but it would be expensive because of the ledge that's there. There's also some opportunity in some parts of the building to go up a bit, and we're looking at what that might cost to have a structure underneath it that could actually physically support going up. But then when you go up in Lincoln, they have a 36-foot requirement, and then you got the national park who doesn't want to see what they call our spaceship rising out of the marsh from the national park. So there are some limitations to the site, but the opportunities I mentioned earlier may allow us to create, in terms of a campus, you have different buildings. So those other buildings, which may or may not come about in a repurposing of that end of the campus, would provide some additional area for the school to provide vocational technical education.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the audience?
Oops.
Jason Cole, Neshoba Road, and a couple of quick questions. What is the expected life cycle of the building? What comes back from your engineering schematics?
50 years is what MSBA, I think, requires as a minimum design life.
And what's the bond term that you're planning on taking out?
30 years is what we're estimating.
Thank you. And then What will the plan be for the students during construction? Are they going to use the old building? Was there going to
Yes.
be any use of trailers for temporary swing space or anything along those lines?
No, we'll remain in the building we have until the new one is opened.
And my last question was already addressed. You're going to come back with different plans that you'll be able to speak to more in November about what you're going to do with the old building.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the audience? So I would like, because I think, we've been asked as a town or as a board to attend a number of different meetings, and Janet has sort of been our Minuteman liaison, I know, attending the meeting on the 28th, and there's been other informal conversations and some formal with other member districts, and so I think it's important for us as a board to have a position on two things. One, on whether or not we support the building project sort of as proposed, and then two, whether I would like to have the discussion and hopefully take a vote on whether we support doing a town meeting or a district-wide vote, or if we're supportive of either option. And I think that that's helpful for the school committee going forward as well. So if people have comments on that, why don't we start with that? Janet?
Yeah, I support the building project because it's a necessity, and it's the only one of the options that makes any sense. It's the only practical one. And as far as the vote is concerned, I think that, well, the town meeting vote, would that have to be unanimous, or is that?
The town meeting vote would have to be a majority in each of the 16 member
Majority
towns.
of each
So
of the
one
16.
town could vote it down.
Right, and I don't know, my concern is that given the history of that's likely to happen, and so you'd have one town that would just jam everything up again, but somebody had suggested at the Friday's meeting that you have the town meeting vote, and then right now, the school administration should set a date for the district-wide voting, whatever it is, and maybe it depends on what the school committee members say is a good day, but it's just that it will allow coordination in all of the 16 towns for that date, and maybe sort of coordinate it with when town meeting is scheduled, because a lot of towns have their town meetings sometime in the spring. But, I mean, my concern with that proposal, I mean, what it would do is it would be democracy, to the extent that that exists at town meeting these days, given that we have a sort of the interested people showing up, and the vast majority of people stay away, but you have the weighing in sort of in a more democratic way at town meeting level. And then if that fails, then you have a district-wide ballot vote, and if things go well, then you'll get the approval at that level. If you perchance don't get the vote, then it sort of suggests that there's a real fundamental problem that none of us is aware of right now. But I'm sort of inclined to try both, even though it obviously may mean more cost administratively and time-wise and all the rest of it, only because I'm a little bit concerned about what people have referred to as the nuclear option, which is the district-wide vote. And, I just want to, it's sort of making an accommodation to people who don't want to be left out at the local level, and feel that strongly that town meeting is the best way for them to be heard. But at the same time, I don't want to have happen what has happened in Washington, which is that a few people can control the agenda. So that's why the backup plan. But that's something I'm open to suggestion, and obviously it's something that the school committee and others will be discussing, so.
Peter?
I'm just reading the statutes here. It looks like for the town meeting votes, there's something about the 60 days clock running after the committee votes to incur the debt. Are you planning on trying to do this within the schedule of the regular town meetings that all your 16 members have, or would there be special town meetings that would have to be called? We've already had one, and probably another one special this year. So I don't know if you've thought about that, but.
I've thought about it a lot.
Okay.
It's a scenario that could accomplish what Janet was talking about. I'm hopefully for the for my board meeting on the 13th, I'm going to have a sort of a decision tree with dates and a timeline for all what I call 3 options. First option is to go to town meeting. And let me just back up. The school committee has to vote to bond a project, and then that vote gets translated into a warrant article which needs to be approved by town meeting within 60 days. If a town fails to hold a town meeting to vote no, that vote will have deemed to have been approved by non-disapproval. So if we have enough consensus in the district that they're for the project either way, the school committee would have the option to consider voting the debt sometime in December, and 60 days from there, a town who wanted to say no could hold a special town meeting and say no. We would know that by January, and then we could set a date for a district-wide ballot so that it doesn't interfere with town meeting, nor does it overburden some of the town clerks that may have multiple elections going on the same day. I've had some conversations about the logistics of this with some of the town clerks, and they physically can't handle more than 2 separate ballots, because ours would be a separate ballot. It couldn't be, from what I've been told, it couldn't be, a list of a number of different things. It has to be dealt with uniquely and distinctly. So there are some challenges there, and then the other option is they could seek to extend that 60 days, but with the deadline of June 30th, 2016 looming over us and $60 million perhaps walking out the door, I think there may be some motivation to action as long as we can get, 15 out of the 16 to say, yeah, let's do it. So there's a lot of opportunity for dialogue and...
Okay, I mean, just from my individual selectman perspective, our town meeting is in April, but you seem to be saying that the towns that wanted to accept it didn't need to hold town meetings. I mean, even if we vote to accept the building, I think I personally would want to have a town meeting. I wouldn't want the selectmen to make the decision to take on this kind of debt in our district. I mean, I'd rather have
No, I understand completely, yeah.
Peter, can you say whether or not you support the building project and your preference?
Oh, yeah, no, I do support the building project. I don't have a strong preference one way or the other. There's the statute about the superintendent's making the point that it's difficult for clerks to schedule separate ballot questions. And it looks like it has to be a completely separate question, so I don't know how they get around that, but
I should mention that
yeah.
Minuteman pays for all the costs associated with that district ballot.
Right, I do see that. It's different than normal elections. It's a maximum of 8 hours a day. Our polls are usually open 12 hours a day, so, and I'm not sure how, well, I mean, obviously, it would depend on how it was publicized, but how many people would turn out to vote for it. But I frankly, I don't have a, particular opinion on one or the other at this point.
Okay, that's legit. Franny?
Yeah, I'm for the building project, and I'm for whatever method keeps 1 or 2 communities from sort of affecting the whole area. If there's a way to not have that be able to happen, because it's a lot of kids' educations at stake from that eventuality, so.
Yes.
So, I'll just reiterate that I also am very supportive of the building project. As Janet said, there really isn't another option. And I think what's frustrated me at some of these meetings and hearing the concerns from other communities is just that they don't have an alternative. What's the alternative of not going forward with this project? And I haven't gotten a good answer or heard any answer on that. So I think it is, voting for this. If you support Minuteman and you support vocational technical education in our district, then you need to support this project, and that's sort of how I see it. To me, I just want to say I agree with Peter. I think that if you go forward with the town meeting option, or sort of presenting it as seeing if people, say no and then going with the ballot, I agree that I think at least in Acton, we would still want to hold, even if this board's supportive, we would still want to hold a town meeting because it is, it is a lot of money. And so I don't think that at least this Board of Selectmen would be comfortable making that decision without taking it. So to me, I would rather, we've had quite a few town meetings recently. We're planning another one for November, we'll probably be calling another one for November 10th? Yeah, 10th. Later tonight, but it sounds like this decision wouldn't be in time for that. So to me, I'm really reluctant to have another special town meeting in, January, February. And personally, I think the more democratic option is the district-wide ballot, just because, if 2/3 of the people in Acton support it and 52% of the people in Wayland don't support it, the project fails. And, to give everybody an equal vote means going the district-wide ballot route. I think A, it's more fair, and then B, it's more realistic to get this passed, just because I think there are a few communities that a not huge majority, but enough of a small majority don't support it. But overall in the district, I think there would be, as evidenced by your polls and other anecdotes, that there would be support. So why don't we take a vote, if we could get a motion on, the board supporting the building project, and then maybe we don't do one.
Move to express support for the building project.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay. And then it sounds to me like people are kind of up in the air about that, so maybe that's the message we send with regard to how the voting process should go.
Frankly, you convinced me.
Oh, okay,
So,
all right.
I don't know if you want to hold a vote or not.
If you got a
Our
motion.
representative is here, so we could send a message to her about how we feel, I guess.
Yep. So do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we support having the district-wide vote under 71, Section 16N.
Whatever, Lisa will fill it in. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, or any other comment? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, so now we have official opinion from the town of Acton, so hopefully.
Thank you. Can
Pam
I take you with me to 14 other towns?
I would be happy to. No, I go to enough meetings. And I was saying to people earlier tonight, I think we've sometimes find it tough to get votes through one town meeting, so I do not envy you guys having to get 15 communities to support your projects and your budget every year. So we wish you luck, and we'll be involved in the conversations going forward. And Janet's sort of our Minuteman point person, but we're all happy to do what we can. So thank you all for coming tonight. Okay. I think I actually have another hearing notice that I need to read for 7:50. So let me read that, and then we'll come back to the original hearing. The Acton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on October 5th, 2015 at 7 p.m. On the application of Jingbo Lee doing business as Legends Cafe. Oh, these are both the same. Okay, good. Legends Cafe, 5A Spruce Street, under Section 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws for a common victualler license. The application can be inspected at Town Hall during normal business hours. Okay, do we have our representatives from 5A Spruce Street here? Okay, wonderful. Would you guys come up, and you can either sit up here or up there, wherever's easiest. Sure. And just press a little button to turn it on. And if you could introduce yourself, do you want to talk about these separately, or you want to talk about them together? Yeah, okay, great. So if you can just turn it on, introduce yourselves, and kind of give an overview of the two applications, please.
Hi, I'm Dave Hebert. I'm managing Spruce Street Cafe, or Legend Cafe at 5A Spruce Street.
I'm Jimbo Lee, and owner Legend Cafe, 5A Spruce Street.
Just give a quick overview of what you're requesting to.
Okay, well, tonight we're trying to get approval for the sheets that are in the cafe. A little history, I think, needs to be said. Right now, or when we applied for our permit for the cafe, something popped up with the planning committee, and it was only approved for 4 seats, or permitted to have 4 seats at that location. And I guess for the last 20 years, there's been, up to 50 or 55 from what I've heard from different people. So we're not asking for any extra seats that aren't there. We're just trying to get approved for what is there. That's the first part of it, and the second is the CV license, of course. So, from my understanding, there's 2 different processes for amount of seats in the town of Acton. One goes with the planning board and parking, and the second has to do with the Board of Health and with your septic system and flow. And there's 2 different guidelines for each. So when we applied for the 50, that's what we applied for, because that's what the Board of Health said that could be we could open with 50 seats for 5 days. We're not really, to be honest with you, we're not going to have 50 seats. We'll probably have 30. We want 36. So that's what we have approved right now temporarily from the planning committee, and let's just move forward with that. I know you've been in our cafe a few times and know it quite well. We're not looking to rebuild, blow out any walls or do anything different. We just want to get approval for what the seats that we thought we bought to begin with.
Are there questions from board members? Janet? No? Peter?
It looks like you're going to have seating outside, 12 seats, so would that
Yeah.
be part of the 35 or 50?
The 36, yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the total seating in this town, the way it's permitted it includes the outside seating.
Okay. I think it's 35. I think
35,
that's
yeah.
what
Okay.
we're being asked to approve right now.
36.
Yep, 36.
On the
36.
condition that it go to 50, once the Board of Health approves your application for their license.
Well, the Board of Health has already approved us for what we have right now for 7 days for the flow, for the total flow.
Which you have 35.
35, right.
But you're asking them to go to 50.
No, we're not.
You're not?
No, right now, originally, when we first applied, that's what we were going for, but we didn't realize that it was only for 5 days. We would like to be open for 7 days, just so we can be in business and, don't confuse your customers as to what day you're going to be open and closed, and go from there.
So you're not asking the Board of Health for 50
no.
seats for 7 days?
At this time, no.
You just want to stay at 35?
Correct.
36.
Okay, I think the planners are here. I mean, isn't that a little different than what you wrote in your memo?
Peter, I was
I'm
at
sorry.
the Board of Health meeting they were at.
Oh,
So
okay.
originally, it was 50.
For 5 days.
For 5 days, but it was kind of under different ownership. And they've asked now to go to 36 seats for 7 days. And the Board of Health approved that. And this is saying they can do that. And the Board of Health sort of said, come back with actual flow data, and we'd be willing to increase it later if, it's
Yeah, but
allowed
that-
under. So that's why this would be 36 up to
Versus
50 if the Board of Health
Oh, okay.
allows it at a later
Yeah.
date. But Kristen, do you want to add anything?
You got it right. Yep,
Okay,
that's
Just happened to be at that Board of
Yeah,
Health
we just
meeting.
added it that way, so, in a draft decision as, for your consideration, if they wanted to in the future, they wouldn't have to come back and ask for an amendment. It would just make it a little bit easier.
Yep.
And then just to clarify, the parking allows 50?
Yes, we'd confirm that there are certain sections of the zoning bylaw for village zoning where you can reduce parking because you're sharing parking. So it does comply with 50.
Okay, thank you.
Are any questions?
I think,
No? Okay. Any questions from the audience? No. Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion? I think there's a draft decision that the planning department has prepared for us. Does anybody have any concerns?
Move to approve the application of Legend Cafe for a use special permit, increasing seating to up to 50, as described in the draft decision.
a second.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Then does anybody have any questions about the common victualler license? Frank?
I didn't know how it affects, you also do a catering business.
Yeah, we've been catering for a long time, for over 10 years. We have many corporate and private clients. We also cater to some private schools, some lunch programs. We've worked with towns in the past, very similar. I've heard the Council on Aging. We've done a meal program with some Council on Aging in certain towns. So, things that, we're always open to more business, but we're also, want to be good neighbors too, and, give a little bit back where we can.
And also, are you going to renovate, you mentioned some little renovations you're going to do inside?
Well, eventually we're going to redo the floors. We're not going to really, we can't do much to the building itself because
Right,
it is
no,
what it is. But
Internal.
just redo the floors, maybe get some new tables eventually, and go from there.
Good.
Janet?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, Peter, question? No, okay.
Move to approve the application of Jingbo Lee doing business as Legend Cafe for a common victualler license.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you guys very much.
Can I just ask Roland or Kristen a question before you leave? I'm just wondering what, how this happened that the establishment had a license for 4 seats and they've been operating with 35 for so long. I mean, it apparently didn't cause problems here because the septic system seems to have been able to accommodate that capacity. But I'm just wondering, the health inspectors go out there and inspect restaurants once a year at least, I'm sure. Do they not, doesn't the health department check the number of seats that were approved for the septic system in the first place?
I think that's where integration into a land use group helps. This is a typical outcome of the stovepipe operation that we've had in the past, where every department is doing their own thing. There are different regulations and different standards for capacity of a space that's based on building code and fire regulations. Then there is the seating capacity regulation based on what zoning says. And then there is the seating capacity regulation based on what health does, and coordination and cross-checking the different requirements that have been put in place hasn't always been at best in the past. So it's like the oops, 4 seats and we're at 35. And I can't tell you how it happened other than everybody worked in their own little department and own space. And so hopefully that won't happen again. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, thank you. I appreciate it.
I wanted to note that Jingbo's name was spelled wrong in some of the documents. I wanted to make sure on the real license it was correct. It says Jingho, H-O, and it should be Jingbo, right? B-O. In the victualler's license. Oh, good, okay.
Okay, thank you guys very much for coming. Okay, up next is the update from the Acton Nursing, and we didn't update this, Acton Nursing Services Task Force update. So would you guys like to come up to the table here, Charlie, et cetera? Does not have a, Okay, you guys know the drill. If you could introduce yourselves and the rest of the committee and jump right. Do you have the clicker? Yep. Okay.
Yes,
You're
I'm
good
all
to go.
set.
We'll get the lights.
Oh. Well, thank you. We are the Acton Nursing Services Task Force. Let's see who's here tonight. Howard. I'm Charlie Cadillac. Howard Sussman is our vice chair. Ellen Feinsand is our clerk. If you want to raise your hand or smile or something. Marge Kennedy is giving out, there she is, goodies. And Florence Ross, member of FANS, presidents of FANS, Friends of Acton Nursing Services. Adrian Hancock's going to help to do the presentation, and Dick Calandrella. We're all here, and also we have our Selectmen liaison, Katie Green, and Heather York, staff liaison, nursing director. And we will also note we have had two past task force members, Brenda Gowing and Pam Harding Barrett. So that's who we are. I'm going to do a lot of turning around so I can see what we're looking at. Basically, we're here to give you an update. You appointed us last February, some 7 months ago. We're still working on the goals and objectives that were set up, but enough has taken place to give you an update. Well, nothing happens. Technology problems.
Work for the Minuteman guys, Charlie.
Well, you tried.
That's what you get from buying them in the dollar store.
Sorry.
I'll just move the chair. Just stand
Oh, jeez. It's going to be, you want a chair? Okay, now. This is just briefly the objective. I'm not going to read slides. I usually don't do that, but for the benefit of people watching at home, this whole presentation is available on DocuShare if anybody wants to look at it later. That's our objective. The next slide is our goals. That's basically what we've been working at. Now, a little bit about the Acton Nursing Services Task Force. Again, we started in February. We've met about 16 times. We have focused primarily on getting accurate information and verifiable information, which is mostly the so-called Acton Nursing Services questions and answers document, which I'll come back to. Looked at marketing efforts and basically confirmed that there is still a considerable amount of lack of information or even knowledge of the Acton Nursing Services among the Acton residents. So one of the objectives and goals is to increase the awareness of Acton Nursing Services, and we'll take this opportunity, although you, the selectmen, already know all this, will, for the benefit of the audience, quickly review what Acton Nursing Services is and does, because the town population almost seems to divide almost into two groups, though the people that have had occasion to use the Acton Nursing Services, who are, to my knowledge, without exception, become supporters and promoters, and those who just for one reason or another haven't had any reason to use home care, and again, quite a few of them just do not know the Acton service. Acton Nursing Services exists. So that's one of the goals of this task force, is to change that. We have also looked at the demographics, and again, I'll come back to that in a second. So, next slide, please. Briefly, Acton Nursing Services, as you can see, was established many years ago. Equally importantly, perhaps more so, it became Medicare certified home care agency in 1966. That's more and more important, and very important these days. It is a top-rated home care services agency. In one rating system, it's one of the top 100 out of roughly 10,000 in the nation, which is basically top 1%. And also, and this is worth emphasizing, it's available 24 hours a day, every day of the year, which is not true of some of the competition. Next slide is equally important. These are all of the things that Acton Nursing Services does or participates in, which is more than just the home care agency, nursing, occupational, physical, speech therapy. It also overlaps heavily into the public nursing functions that each town has to provide, but having the Acton Nursing Services available makes these services in Acton wider, more available, and as mentioned earlier by Katie, such as the flu clinic that's going to be done for the next 3 days, which I'm told to remind people, and although it's at the high school, it's for all residents, not just students and teachers and school people. This is for all of Acton. This is typical of the kind of things that the Acton Nursing Services does. I'm going to start calling it ANS for short. And to repeat, a lot of people are not aware that this is available. And in another aspect of this is not all of these things are reimbursed in any fashion, so the financial information, which we'll touch on briefly, does not really take into account clinics, wellness programs, and so on. To go on, the ANS has its own website, which a little bit later will show you exactly how to get at it, but you either through the town website, which is now done very nicely, or directly through the web name as you see it on the screen. And there we go, this is the website you will see. As you can see, it's quite a bit of information behind each one of these, and it's the top 100 agency. So that's a little bit of background for the people who are not aware of Acton Nursing Services. And the last thing to mention in that context is one of the things that we have also emphasized is that people should be aware that in almost all cases, they have the choice of what home care agency to use when they are discharged from hospital or elsewhere. That's very important because that's how ANS grows and gets business. Now, Adrian Hancock will continue.
Yes, we'll just pass on now to talking a little bit about the marketing activities of and for ANS. The first slide you see up there talks about ANS and the task force's activities to date. And again, I'm following Charlie here. I'm not going to read these items. There are just a few that I'd like to really focus on. One was we had a quick look at a previous marketing assessment that had been done, and that was focused on saying, is there enough of a target market in Acton, and can we penetrate enough of that market for there to be a viable long-term service? I mean, we now have that, so let's make the best we can of that. And it turned out that Acton Nursing Service, in fact, was only capturing a fairly small percentage of the business that's here in Acton. The second thing is we spent a lot of time actually trying to get some clear and indisputable facts, because over the past 3 or 4 years, there has been a lot of debate about things which actually have right or wrong answers. So we put quite an effort into posing questions and then getting the correct answers to those. And that's a question and answer document that is now posted on the website, and it's also available in hard copy. And we also wanted to do assessments of various things that have gone on, and we will be looking again at the activities that have taken place by the Friends of Acton Nursing Service. Florence will mention those a little bit later on, but this has been an unsung promoter of Acton Nursing Services for a long time. And we already have put in place, through the staff at ANS, a 4-phase direct mail campaign that is going to introduce the Acton community again to the services that are provided by Acton Nursing Services. So as we looked at this, we said, okay, there is enough market potential here for this to be a really thriving agency, and thank goodness it's become a town department. The second thing is we said that we just have to get our priorities right. We need to have correct information, and we have to understand what the best selling points are for ANS. Selling in a nice sense, in other words, what is it we should be promoting? And Charlie has said things such as the 365 by 24 by 7, that type of capability, and the extremely high quality ratings. And then we have to look at focusing on the user, the target user population, making sure that everybody in Acton knows that they have what used to be called a hometown VNA, but it is Acton's very own highest quality nursing service. And then we frankly have to do another job of reintroducing Acton Nursing Service to the healthcare community locally. And it was amazing to me listening to the superintendent from Minuteman talking about how fog has concealed the opportunities for Minuteman education. I think Acton Nursing Services has had exactly the same problem. There has been a debate going on over the past few years that has distracted attention from what the nursing service does. So if we go on to we're on the next slide already at this point. The actual task of marketing in this particular case we don't think is terribly difficult. It's something that has to be done diligently. But since most of the audiences that we're going to are not yet in the social media area, we can use some of the more true and established techniques like direct mail, like outreach to networks of doctors and physicians and health services, and we in fact have one of our team members specifically focused on doing that. We just have to define exactly who they are, define the messages that are particularly responsive, that they will respond to well, and also communicate effectively to them. And then one of the things that I'm personally concerned about is that whenever we see information out there that is incorrect, we just need to correct it. We can't let incorrect material on websites fester. So those are the activities on marketing. We're all looking forward to spending a good lot of time on that and looking at the first campaign rollout taking place in Q4.
Actually, I skipped over one thing that I want to go back to. Also, the Acton Nursing Services serves anybody of any age that applies. As is true nationally, most of the people are older, 60 and older, so we took a quick look at how much of the Acton population falls in that category. We got the 2015 census, and the number, just so you know, of people 60 and older in Acton is, I just had it, 4,080 some, which is very consistent with the study that Peter Ashton did for the Senior Center Building Committee last April. And it's not only a large number, it's a growing number. his projections went up to, numbers like 7,000 by the year 2030. What we have is the actual number for the current year. We went one step further. We took a look at how many of that population live alone, because they tend to be people who need outside services more than they would if they had somebody in the household that can help them. And that's also a significant number. It's 1,500, give or take 40 or so, which does include places like Windsor Green, but if you take this a little bit further, there are also people who are not necessarily living alone. There may be two of them, but they both may be older and need help. So the point of that is the population that is likely to need home care in Acton is large and increasing. And one more quick point, it's hard to assess the health care situation overall, but the emphasis on home care is definitely increasing to have people discharged from hospitals sooner and have them taken care of by agencies such as ANS. That's a trend that seems to continue, and this positions ANS very well for the next few years as far as we can see. Back to our slides. Okay, we're learning a lot about ANS finances, and we'll give you a quick overview. Splitting it in two parts, the revenue and the expenses. The expenses of ANS, and whether it's what used to be the enterprise fund or now part of the town budget, doesn't really change anything. The expenses are fairly straightforward to understand because they're mostly salaries, benefits, so paying outside, independent contractors, people that come in when the need arises. Those costs are known, and equally importantly, they're fairly current. I mean, they're not lagging behind. They're paid every couple of weeks. And those numbers are pretty clear and well established. The revenues has been discussed many times before. The one thing we confirm is that they lag the services. I mean, the system is such, and we're still learning, that when somebody becomes a client of ANS, the services start immediately. The revenue from that can take many, many months. The only thing we know at this point, and this is from the Acton Finance Department confirmed by the Health Department, is that every admission is a good thing financially. There are a certain level of fixed costs that the Acton Finance Department has now established. Admissions contribute something towards paying off those fixed costs. The problem has been that going any further in trying to understand this runs into the privacy issues. We are not able to look at the costs and expenses of specific cases because that's the privacy problem. So all we have is generalities at this point. The change that's happening is that the ANS has recently, and that will be on a slide in a minute, obtained new software to do the billing, because it is the Acton Nursing Services that does the billing, not the finance department. Finance department only knows how much cash came in. They have no other connection to the actual billing or revenue. The new software, which is now being implemented, will have the capability of providing more detail about just how the revenue works. So we hope next time we see you, we'll be able to explain that a little better, because we'll understand it a little better. That's basically what that slide says. And this is the slide that explains the new software. The obvious thing, it's half the cost of the old one, and again, it is expected to give us much more information, so we'll understand the revenue picture better. At this point, it's premature to say much more, but we'll be happy to answer questions if we can. Moving along, Adrian already mentioned the Friends of Acton Nursing Services has been a supporter of ANS for many years. Florence Ross is here, who's the president of FANS, can explain and expand on any of these subjects better than any of us. But FANS provides equipment, volunteers, funds, a lot of things, and has been doing it for a long time. The next one, I already mentioned. Basically, it's what I said earlier, that the Acton population is a good fit to what ANS basic services are, which is home care, which goes primarily to people 60 and up, although it's available to everybody. Moving along, the next slide is from Peter Ashton's report, basically confirming the numbers that we got. Our numbers are between for 2015 is between the first two columns and comes in between 4,000 and 5,000, exactly consistent with Peter's numbers. And I have his full report, not that I expect we'll need it, because there really hasn't been any controversy about the fact that Acton population is aging, the demographics are moving towards higher age, and that group is increasing. This is basically just to mention that ANS does provide the kind of services that are getting more and more attention by the healthcare system. The quality is a big factor, because one of the things that the healthcare system measures independently of the agency itself are things basically known as outcomes, which means how well do the people do that the home care agency takes care of. For example, readmissions to hospitals. If you get discharged from a hospital, you go to the home care agency, and 4 weeks later you're readmitted to the hospital. That's not a good thing. That's a negative. Acton Nursing Services has an outstanding record, much better than the baseline or the average, on treating people in a way that they get well faster and don't have to be readmitted. That's a win-win situation for everybody, certainly for the person being treated, for the referrer, for whoever referred the patient to the agency, and for the agency itself. That's part of this top 100 reward and so on. And to repeat, that's something Acton residents should be taking advantage of. We have our own home care agency that's extremely highly rated. It's there for us. To sum it up, I won't read the slide, but basically what we've been talking about is we have confirmed some of the anecdotal evidence that existed before we started. A year ago, there were some questions about the value of ANS to the Acton community. I think a lot of that has been resolved. Not to repeat too much, but we see ANS is moving along quite well. We have to do a few things, as Adrian mentioned, to increase the awareness, get a little more business for the Acton Nursing Services, which means admissions. And we'll be back probably before the next April's town meeting to tell you how all that worked. And I have a really brief other slide, if Steve can find it, that shows how easy it is to find information about ANS on the town website. It's a different PowerPoint. You have to close this one. No. No, excuse me. It's a separate. It says finding ANS. Okay, they'll find it. If not, it's early. Okay, here we go. Well, we'll just click through this. This is just to show people how you go to the town website, which is there. You just click through it there. You go to, well, hopefully it's self-evident. We now have Acton Nursing Services right there on top. It starts with A. That takes you to the website, which we've seen before. Go ahead, Steve. And the website's got a lot of other things behind it. Okay. And the other document, which we mentioned a couple of times, is the thing that we put together to provide accurate information to the town. It's called the Acton Nursing Services Q&A, sometimes modified to frequently asked questions, but it's there. And go ahead, again, you go to the town website. This time it's right there on the home page. There it is. There it's called Frequently Asked Questions. And that takes you to the document, which we don't show because it's 10 pages, but anybody who has some curiosity about Acton Nursing Services can take a look at it. It has good information and it's periodically updated. We'll be very happy to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Charlie and Adrian and the rest of the task force. Questions, comments from board members? Sure, Franny.
Do you have any data on how many seniors are online? I'm thinking about the decision to
How many are online?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of your decision to focus on a direct mail.
Not enough of them. No, I have no, people don't identify themselves by age, so I don't know how you would really, I don't have that information, no.
Yeah, I wonder. And it seems like all of this is really important, including the Q&A, and I realize what you're up against is there's a general lack of knowledge in general about what services are available to me when I am in need, and you're under usually a crisis situation at the time that you're looking for it. And so I don't know how that can help, but I'm just wondering if you have thought of, I know there's SHINE counseling, which I forget what it stands for, but it's about health insurance. Volunteers counsel people on health insurance options through the senior center. But I'm wondering about just an educational component coming from Acton Nursing Service about what, that whole scene of what I'm eligible for, what different types of insurance cover, what Acton Nursing Service would do, what Minuteman Senior Services does, what other healthcare agencies do. I'm just thinking aloud as I'm looking at it.
You're right where we are. I mean, that's exactly the kind of stuff we hope to be able to do. It's a matter of who's going to do it and when. But the Council on Aging in their newsletter has already, mentioned the Acton Nursing Service, some of the services. Again, for the reasons we mentioned, the audience that's the most likely to be receptive to this are people at the senior center, but not exclusively. As the superintendent of the Minuteman Vocational School said, there's a lot of people just don't know that in his case, the Minuteman Vocational's existence, programs, and so on. This is a somewhat similar situation, and that's the kind of thing that, as Adrian mentioned, we are working to change. It's going to take some time because you have to, but things are happening. For example, March is arranging for one of our real estate agents to come and visit us at our next meeting because they want to have information like package distributed for potential buyers of property in Acton. This is now being presented as an asset for, as a positive thing available to people who move to Acton, perhaps with older family, parents that may need these services. The word is going to get spread, more widely spread than it has been, but all of these things have to be done.
I want to thank all of you for your work, and Florence, Ross, and FANS. I think you're very clever. You got yourself at the top of the list, and FANS has F-A-N-S. I mean, you can't do better for an acronym. I started thinking about all these other organizations like Friends of the Council on Aging or Friends of Acton Arboretum, and I won't say what they are out loud, but it just doesn't sound as beautiful as FANS. I mean, I think you're very clever.
Well, if there was another A, we probably would have suggested we change it to AAA Nursing Service. But anyway, we appreciate the help, from the IT department. All of these things, somebody has to sit down and do. But as you can see, it's more likely now that people will find ANS on the town website than it was 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Peter.
And I think one of the good things that's come out of this process, besides helping ANS out, is a lot of the misinformation has been dispelled. One of the things that we heard leading up to town meeting was that ANS was basically a money pit and eating more and more money every year. And I'm seeing from your Q&As that over the last decade, the revenue shortfall has been about $400,000, so averaging $40,000 a year. And you've certainly confirmed that, I guess, if that's in your question and answers, obviously, right?
Well, that's for that time period. The data for the last couple of years doesn't quite follow that, and we're trying to figure out why.
Okay, but you're on a track with this marketing and attracting new clients to reduce the revenue shortfall and hopefully break even at some point. Is that the goal?
I think we will defer answering that question for another few months because the marketing effort hasn't really kicked into high gear yet. And one of the reasons is lack of available woman power to get it all done, but we're getting there. But, the admissions, which we're getting some information on, just vary from month to month for reasons that haven't quite been able to pin down. But it's going to change. We're quite confident about that. But, you know, the other part that Howard's going to be mad at me if I don't mention, with the number of admissions as they are, the number of visits per admission averages between 25 and 30. So even if the number of admissions is in the, 100 to 200, it translates into literally thousands of visits of Acton residents by the nursing service per year. And that's not counting the clinics, the vaccinations, all the public health service, all the other things that were on the slide. There's actually a lot of contact between the people that work for Acton Nursing Services and the town residents. But to mention, it's a part of the Acton population. The rest of the Acton population who hasn't needed these services needs to be made aware that it's available in case they need it.
Okay, I was also very interested in the computer program that you put together. One of the things I understood from the consultants that were talking to us last year was that there was a change in Medicare regulations that were going to require such complicated billing designations from thousands to hundreds of thousands or something, that it was going to be almost impossible to do. Is that going to happen in the future, or is this software program you bought, the service bought, capable of dealing with the new Medicare billing issues?
I'm going to have to defer, and I'm not sure I want to put her on this. You want to try answering that? It's Heather's the one who can tell you.
Hi.
Hi.
Peter, I guess I'm questioning what you were told. I didn't see that consultant report. I wasn't here then. I'm thinking Medicare is billed exactly the way it was a year ago, 2 years ago. The payment is different. That's the difference about it. So the billing is the same. The payments are different. They're more based on, there's been 17% reduction over the last 3 years. And the other factor is in the future, and when that will happen, I don't know. As Charlie was talking about, like hospital readmissions, agencies that have better outcomes will get better reimbursement, and that's down the pike. That's not even involved right now, and that will be a Medicare calculation. It's not something that is billed differently.
Okay, well, even with the 17% reduction, you're getting per client from Medicare a surplus. I mean, it pays for the service.
Yes.
Plus, okay. Because
For the direct
one of the
care,
things I learned
right.
was that the private insurers actually pay less rates than Medicare.
Correct.
Which surprised me, but
Right.
okay. But basically, is it your understanding that this software program will take you into the future for some period of time? You're not going to have
Yes.
to upgrade it again?
No, no.
In the near future? Okay.
No.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Bill Mullen stood up at town meeting and said, he's going to vote for this because he voted against the West Acton Citizens Library, and he regretted that. Ever since he did that, it was the best decision the selectmen ever made was to keep the library open, and I have a feeling that's what we're going to feel about this vote in the future, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet?
Speaking of voting against things, everybody knows I've been in the past on the Acton Nursing Service. I want to give myself credit. I emailed him a Wall Street Journal article about the increasing trend to home care, and I thought there's some potential there in the future for Acton Nursing Service to do something with that. I have a question. Steinberg Lally, the charitable contribution, my understanding or my recollection was it was for 3 years, and I've forgotten how much it was per year, but I didn't know if that's been renewed or if it's lapsing or if there are efforts to renew it.
It was $120,000 that was received in $40,000 increments over 3 years. Most of the money is still available.
Oh, okay.
It is used to pay, and this is separate from, it's a separate account from the municipal budget or the enterprise fund. It's used to pay for situations where people cannot afford the care, Acton residents, and that's a decision made by the nursing service, the town manager maybe. But I don't have the number in front of me, but only about 20, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 20,000 has been used so far. And while we're on that subject, other donations to ANS, which people give money occasionally, are similarly used for situations where there's a need and people cannot perhaps afford some equipment or something. So that does not come out of either the enterprise, it used to be the enterprise fund or the budgets. The town accountant actually keeps a separate charge account for that.
Real quick, I think Heather was indicating it's a different number than what you said. Do you want to say, Heather, how much has been spent or is left?
As I said, I may be wrong.
Thank you, Janet. That was a good question. There's about 20,000 left. We have approached Steve Steinberg, and he has agreed that he will be giving us a further donation. This current calendar year, how he's doing it is the calendar year, so 2015 was the third installment, and we've used the rest in the past.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, maybe as your reputation builds, you'll discover all the other deep pockets in town, right? Anyhow, and then since Peter brought up the issue of Medicare reimbursement, I've been through presentations for a number of years, and I remember at one point there was sort of an effort to focus on Medicare reimbursable patients, because at that point Medicare was reimbursing at the highest rate relative to private insurers. Now, and then we heard thereafter that Medicare's reimbursement rate was dropping, which it has, but I don't know what percentage, what is Medicare covering? I don't know if it varies depending on the service or if there's sort of a medium percentage that it covers. It's
As opposed to private insurance? Is that what you're asking?
well, I assume that Medicare still is more generous than private insurance, or is it the same now? They're all low.
This is one of the questions we cannot answer because we are not able to look at the individual cases because of privacy reasons. We hope, underlined, to get at that information in some way that doesn't violate the privacy laws with perhaps this new software's, deleting the private information. But at this point, I cannot answer that. But in a slightly different level, answer whatever it is, the ANS, as any other agency, doesn't have a choice. It cannot decide to only accept Medicare or not. That's, I believe, called cherry picking, and that's illegal. So whatever comes in, it is what it is. And beyond that, I mean, you can attempt to perhaps eventually, some way promote one or the other, but even that would be difficult. The age ones is okay and straightforward. Knowing what kind of insurance people have in advance, I think would be difficult.
Heather did mention something, though, about in future, based on the rating of the agency, it's possible that your reimbursement rate, I guess it's for Medicare, would go up. It just
based on the outcomes, yes.
Which suggests that there's some hope for the future for a change. I am not FinCom, so I'm not going to ask you the questions I would ask, but their representatives here, so maybe he will. One question about 24/7 service, does that apply to when the service is provided, as to when, say, if somebody is in a pinch on a weekend at 10 o'clock at night, can the person go call a number and get referred to somebody or get help?
That's a perfect question for Heather.
Sorry, Heather.
She's the one who answers the phone.
So we are on call 24/7, so they would get a hold of the nurse on call. Depending on what the issue was, would really depend on if they were referred to an emergent. Usually the calls at that type of the night that aren't our patients are usually an emergent question. and we refer off to, the fire department or whatever the case may be. Typically, if it's our clients, those are the clients that we'll see if need be.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Okay. I just want to say thank you guys for coming tonight and for all your work. I've only been the liaison for about, I don't know, half the time the committee's been in existence or less, but it's been great to work with you guys and to see all of the hard work that has gone, that you have put into this. There's a lot more that you've done that I think is captured in the presentation, and a lot more that I think we'll hear at your sort of next update. And as Franny did, I want to specifically call out fans, because I do think that you're sort of under-recognized for all the work that they've done over the years. And, I think you said Fans has a great name, but I've always thought that Florence has the perfect name for being the head of Fans. So I just think it's a great match all around. And I just wanted to say that, I think, I want to underline, I think the nursing service, the Acton Nursing Services is facing the same issues that all home care agencies are facing right now. So this isn't unique to us, but what is unique is the support of the town and the support of a committee like the task force in trying to face these issues head on and address them in a really smart way. So, we're grateful for your work. And I know one of the goals is that the board had set when forming this task force was to think about an ongoing committee structure or what that might look like. So I think we hadn't talked much about the recommendations, but on there is that you plan to complete those goals and to propose a structure and what that would be. So I look forward to that. And I think those are all of my comments.
Just so people know, thank you.
Oh.
You spent many of your free evenings with us.
I don't think I have free evenings.
That's the point.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? I see a FinCom member would like to speak.
Jason Cullen, Neshoba Road. I do have a couple of questions. I appreciate you taking the time for them. You had mentioned that there were a little over 4,000 people who received services last year.
No. There's over 4,000 residents in Acton who are 60 years or older.
I believe you mentioned visits.
Oh, visits, yeah. I also mentioned there's roughly 25 to 30 visits per admission.
Okay.
So there's somewhere between 100 and 200 admissions a year. It varies by each year.
Okay. And so you're not including in that number, obviously, the number of people that come into the immunization clinics or into any of the other blood pressure or podiatry clinics, correct?
That's correct. Those are not included. These are home care admissions with, multiple visits by the nursing service or physical therapy, occupational therapy, and those services.
Thank you. Perhaps either you or Mr. Ledoux can answer this question. If you do not look at a 10-year span, because it sounds like there's some disagreement, some inconsistency between the 10-year $400,000 subsidy as provided by the town, do we have an estimate as to what the most recent year or what the current year subsidy from the town will be?
It's not.
Will have been.
I want to underscore that it's no longer a subsidy. We've voted at the special
Correct.
town meeting to move the nursing service out of an enterprise fund and into the budget. So the nursing service is not a subsidy. It's a town department funded as other town departments.
Okay.
So the subsidy is $0.
So my apology for having the terminology wrong. What is the cost to the town for the Acton Nursing Service?
Sorry, I don't know the budget number off the top of my head.
Okay. Does the A&S immunization clinic cover costs, or is it run as a public service which is meant to run as a deficit?
The immunization clinic?
means like the flu clinics. Those are part of the public health services. All towns are required to offer public health nursing. And so that is part of what the nursing service does. And
Is it expected to run as a deficit? Because I know they take the insurance cards and they hopefully are trying to get the highest reimbursement rate possible.
Correct, we
Is it
do,
run as a
but
deficit or does it actually break even?
I don't know. It makes money.
Okay. And it's run multiple times. I mean, you did one at the COA, you're doing a couple of the schools. I take it every day that you run the clinic, it actually breaks even or does, or makes money.
See,
Perfect, that's what I needed to know.
just to make a quick point, see, there is considerable overlap between the Acton Nursing Services, which used to be an enterprise fund, and the public health part of providing health care. So the same people sometimes do both, depending on the need, and it's not always easy to financially draw exactly the line of who's paying for what, but the finances of the Acton Nursing Services are pretty well focused on the so-called admissions, people that are discharged from a hospital and need 3 weeks of therapy and nursing care, that kind of thing. All the other stuff is separate.
It all rolls into the same finance department though, correct?
Sorry?
Does it all roll into the same finance department?
We only have one finance
That's
department.
my point. So if it's the same people doing same services, but perhaps under two different names, it's
But my
an apple
point
by
is,
either name.
it's not counted the same, under the same charge numbers.
Fair enough, but at the end of the year, when you're trying to determine what the cost to the town is, it all comes out of the same spot.
So I'm just going to say, I think these are questions that are better suited for Budget Saturday when we talk about the costs of various town departments and not for this presentation.
Thank you very much. That actually was my last question. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Done.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, thank you guys again very much for coming tonight, and we look forward to your next presentation sometime this winter/spring. Okay, up next is Wild Aware, which I say it that way because it's got an exclamation point. So if our Wild Aware folks would like to come up. Steve, do you want to do the, you might have to do the clicker again, do the clicker again. No, there's a PowerPoint. Yeah, Lisa's getting a PowerPoint now. No? We're going to take a small pause. No, I have like a bag of apples at home, trust me. I've got one in my backpack. We're going to do a 2-minute break if anybody needs to use the restroom. Yeah, we're gonna have to manually.
Oh, wait. I didn't.
No, you got one. I brought my own. Okay, I think we are ready. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves and Wild Aware.
Okay. My name is Bettina Abe, and this is my colleague, Paula Goodwin, and I work for Natural Resources and volunteer in other capacities around town, and Paula is a conservation commissioner and also volunteers for land stewards. So we want to switch gears from those human things that we all think about all day long and walking around in our buildings and switch to thinking about our native wildlife. Oops. What?
Okay, so, oops, I don't think that's...
I'm just gonna ask real, guys, if you're gonna have a private conversation, do you mind just doing it in the hall? Because it,
I'll tell you later.
Okay, so the question is, wherefore Wild Aware? Because it's conservation's job to manage 15-plus parcels, which make up 1,700 acres of conservation land, to provide wetlands protection of vernal pools, streams, ponds, and brooks, lead nature walks on conservation lands, offer environmental education in the schools, once even led a kayak trip on Neshoba Brook, and leading bird watching expeditions. The Open Space Committee works to expand the conservation parcels and acquire new ones. Conservation provides passive recreation, most notably at Narrow Park and Morrison Farm, and works with the land stewards and the Friends of the Acton Arboretum.
So she said, wherefore, and I'm saying, therefore. The reason we're doing this is because citizens contact us all the time, and they ask us, how do we get rid of pests, but this is actually wildlife on their property? How do you save a wounded wild animal? And Tom Tidman down there is pictured holding a sharp-shinned hawk that flew into a window at Douglas School a couple years ago, and it was stunned and laying there, and they weren't too sure what to do. So they gave him a call, and he often does this. He picked it up and put it on a branch on a white pine nearby as it sort of, the stars stopped spinning in the poor bird's head, and it eventually was able to fly off. And they call and ask us, what do we do? We just saw a baby owl fall onto the forest floor, and how do we assist a turtle cross the road, or what are the fishing laws locally, and can you please identify this animal photo? Or they, yes, occasionally do bring us live scat.
So another question is, what is the purpose of Wild Aware? And the purpose of Wild Aware is to educate the community about the mammals, birds, amphibians, and insects that we see in our travels around Acton and in our own backyards.
So the goal of our program basically is just increase community awareness of shared habitats in order to protect and conserve our wild and native brethren. We live with lots of other creatures that, not just humans, and we want people to think of them more as our friends and, you know, creatures that need our help, and that we can encourage them to live healthier and safer.
So how do we get the word out? We're going to do that in a variety of ways that are all linked together. We'll be writing monthly articles for the Beacon and Action Unlimited. We'll be creating a Facebook page linked to other Acton community pages. Folks will be able to use Instagram to post local wildlife photos. And we're in the process of creating an Acton Community Access television film, and we'll post cable channel ads for Wild Aware. The film will have a link on the town website, and we'll be sending notices to Acton-Boxborough Regional School principals so that information about the Wild Aware film and articles can be shared with Acton-Boxborough students and their families.
And the program will kind of culminate next summer, probably sometime around the end of June. We are going to have a bio blitz, which I didn't ever hear of this until Paula told me about it. But lots of communities do them. And basically you set a period of time, so we're thinking about like a Friday at about 5 o'clock until the following Saturday at about noon. And everybody from all over town, and at the end we'll have a map of Acton with red dots at every location that they will register with us. You can pick your own property, or you can say, I'm going to go to the Arboretum or any of our conservation lands, or even an athletic field. And you'll inventory every wild animal you see, from bumblebee to salamander. Walk through the woods, just make a list. If people don't necessarily know the exact genus, or species or something, they can at least, write down some general ideas. And then we're also going to put a team of naturalists to stay out overnight. That detail is TBA, probably at Nara, and they can walk the pond loop at night and go into Wills Hole Town Forest. Hopefully Mr. Tidman is one of those participants. And families can do that at home as well. And then the data that we collect will be shared with local wildlife organizations like Mass Wildlife, Mass Audubon, etc.
So how do people participate? As people become more aware of wildlife crossing areas, it will encourage motorists to drive a bit slower in those areas to avoid collisions. Folks can send us wildlife photos for creating posters that will be displayed at the Memorial, Citizens, and Sargent libraries. And then, as Bettina mentioned, we have a couple of culminating events planned for early summer, the Bio Blitz in June, and a Wild Aware party at NARA a few weeks later, where we can talk about the data that we collect.
So we hope you'll participate and support it, talk it up, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you both. Are there any questions from board members? Sure, Brady.
I think it's wonderful. You're making me rethink this job of being a select person, because I'm always thinking about the land, and I'm always thinking about the buildings, and I'm always thinking about the people, but I forgot there's all these animals that we're also should be thinking about. And I also never realized that your department does that. That was my first job out of college, was at Mass Audubon, answering all those same questions. And I didn't realize that those came in daily to the town, too. Mm. So I think it will be really fun. Thank you. Yeah, is it something that you're asking for any kind of funding, or are you just telling us about it?
We think it'll be pretty low budget, and Tom believes he can cover it within his budget. We think, maybe $400 max. We're going to make some buttons, so hopefully all the selectmen will wear their buttons, and the town manager,
nice.
Different town departments, and maybe a cake at NARA, and maybe it would be fun to have one of the wildlife people who bring, like a bobcat and such. It would just be, a couple-hour party, and maybe a folk band, but very low budget.
Peter?
You have some pictures of black bears in here. I haven't seen one in town.
That was
Are
my
they
question.
around?
Well, they have been seen around Acton for sure, yeah. Tom just saw one on his deck, but he's in Townsend. He just saw them last weekend.
That must be his picture then, because this bear is up on a deck, I think. Let's see. I'm very much an environmentalist. I certainly love to have creatures around. We've had turkeys living in our trees in the back of the house. It's actually kind of creepy, these huge birds up in the tree. But there are some, well, first of all, my first question is about the signs. If you call the DPW and ask for a slow children sign, they give you a really hard time. They say, we don't like a lot of signs around town. We'll look at it and see how serious the problem is, but are these going to be like these river signs, or are they going to be, I've seen some turtle crossing signs in town.
Yeah.
You don't have a picture of them in here, so I don't know what they look like.
No, we still want to talk to Corey and Dickie Wade about that and make sure that we're, obeying all the laws about where you're allowed to put signs. And it may be that there really aren't that many that we can put up just because there are a lot of limitations. You're not allowed to clutter the road with too many signs and whatnot. So that still remains to be hashed out.
Okay. And, there are hazards that wildlife bring. I have had Lyme twice. Once I was really sick. Fortunately, they got it, I got it taken care of early enough. There aren't any lasting repercussions. Do we have a accurate census of how many deer there are in town, or will this
BioBlitz.
blitz that you're doing help with that?
Interesting question.
It will be very interesting to see what data comes out of this BioBlitz. I think the people spot deer in several areas in town. It seems like West Acton, South Acton,
People see
in
them every day.
particular.
But there, I went to a presentation, the town of Carlisle was looking to do a controlled hunt. So the town of Dover actually managed to achieve that. And the first step is a census, a deer census. And there's a guy over with Mass Wildlife who does the deer census. And he did one in Carlisle and found that there were, a lot to the point where they were very hungry. And so Carlisle's working towards a controlled hunt, but that's a whole other topic. More than just deer carry the Lyme tick, mice do and birds do, and it's a pretty complicated topic. So I don't know. But we'll be writing about some of those in our articles, some of those concerns.
Okay, and great. I mean, just for people's information out there, we did get an email the other day about a new center that's opening at Spalding Rehab Hospital about the whole Lyme disease issue. I mean, it really is an epidemic, just not in our town, all over eastern Massachusetts. So that's a resource that people who are concerned about the issue might want to check out at Spalding Hospital.
Definitely.
Thanks very much. I think it's a great initiative you're doing here.
Thanks. Yeah, the health department has a lot of, they go to the Massachusetts Task Force meetings all the time, and I think Paul and I will definitely cover that topic in some of our articles.
What can I say? Yeah, it's a terrible idea. No, I'm completely, I think it's a wonderful idea. This is, and I understood that you wanted sort of a formal endorsement. I thought, what do you want the board to do? Say it's great? And and I think, well, you'll get a little bit of coverage for all the vast audience members that are watching us. But I wholeheartedly support this. I sometimes think that I like wildlife better than I do humans, only because I think that they do what they have to do, and we're the ones who have the big brains and aren't necessarily as good about other beings as we might be. But it's interesting that people ask you about scats. We see scats in our yard. It's like bird song. I hear the bird song, but I don't know where the birds are, but I know they're around because of the bird song. I learned how to identify bird song because of that. I bought a book on scats. And so studying all the scats and identifying what they are, my husband thinks it's disgusting. There was one time when we first moved in, we had little scats in in the garage, and, they were on the wall, and we thought, well, they can't be mice, maybe they're, and then I was talking to a wildlife guy, and he said, well, are they shaped like, so we were talking about the shape of these poops, and, which my husband also thought was bizarre, but anyhow, we figured out that maybe there at one point had been a bat in the garage, and he just said, if it's there, let it out, and then close the garage door, but
You should have collected it, because bat guano is extremely good for your garden.
well, there wasn't enough. I would have, yeah, no, I mean, it's very fertile, and yeah, if you go to some of the caverns out west, they have piles and piles of bat dung, which I think they probably just leave, but I think that this will be really popular among school kids and families, the school kid families. I think it'll be a great activity, and kudos to Maggie for her logo. I wanted to notice the little tribute. Very talented young woman, Bettina's daughter. And I think the BioBlitz, I just was thinking, the animals in our yard, over the course of a season, we see a lot of different critters, but in a 24-hour period or 18-hour, chipmunk, squirrel, bunch of birds. If we have food in the feeder, but otherwise they just forsake us. So, but yeah, I support it completely, and look forward to seeing how you roll it out and how people respond. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming tonight and just for all of your work in general. My one question was, this says for 2015 to 2016, is the plan that if this is successful that you would do it in future years as well? Is it sort of a 1 year thing?
Well, we don't want to burn anybody out. Sometimes it's the fun of having it not be every single year. But one thing that can remain is the Facebook page and the Instagram. And I think that could be perpetual.
Yeah, because I think that's I love the idea of the Instagram of people sending, the being able to see the photos. Because as Peter mentioned, I was going to ask about the bear, because I've always wanted to see a bear, and I haven't yet. So, if there's some photos at least of one, I can feel like I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
And I will say, I've seen more, even though I don't have a big yard by my apartment, we did have a beaver for a while. So there was a big log down, so I had a beaver there for a while. So I was sad to hear about the beaver pelt. I'm hoping it wasn't.
I can show you some choice muskrat observation places too. They're so cute.
Yeah, okay, all right. It's not as good as a bear, but no. So I did just want to say thank you. I think this is going to be a great program, and it will remind everybody just how much wildlife there is in Acton, and how important it is to remember that and recognize that. So we very much are looking forward to it, and I think you've got the whether however you want to use it, the endorsement of the board. So. Very, very official endorsement of the board.
Thank you.
We'll be notarizing some stuff. But no, thank you both for coming and announcing it, and we look forward to seeing it roll out over the next few months.
Thank you,
Sounds
ma'am.
great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, up next, I'm going to turn over to you, Steve, for the special town meeting warrant discussion.
Well, as the board discussed it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was some discussion of whether we should call a fall town meeting or not. The board kind of set this date as kind of a decision date as to whether a fall town meeting would be called. In our discussions with the schools, because of activities going on in the auditorium, we were kind of relegated to 2 days, either November 10th or November 12th. And as the board's aware, we saw a presentation concerning the water resources and that bylaw, as we know, it's a requirement of EPA, and as council has pointed out, we certainly are running a risk by not adopting that. Other issues that have come up, and realizing that a lot of the impetus for special town meeting was around zoning changes for Kelly's Corner. We do have a citizen petition article that has been turned in with the requisite 100 signatures that relate to basically, it's a non-binding resolution regarding Common Core state standards as they apply to the AV school system. As the board is aware, we have a land gift from Mark Donahue on property off of Mass Ave, a couple other potential land acquisitions that we're still kind of working through. A discussion that kind of first emanated out of 2020 and the Kelly Corner folks of petitioning the legislature for an increase in our all alcoholic liquor licenses. Right now we are at maximum. I think there's a general feeling that if we petition the general court to have more liquor licenses, that would help the economy in Kelly's Corner and other areas. We would like to see economic development. We have potentially some requests for funds for Kelly's Corner, further design, landscaping at the South Acton train station. And we have 2 tentative agreements in collective bargaining at the moment with the superior officers of the police department and the AFSCME unit, which represents highway, municipal properties, and cemetery workers. So those are the ones that have kind of surfaced that we've put in kind of our tickler file for special town meeting.
Okay, questions from board members? Peter?
You've got maybe you mentioned it, but this accept legislation offices on Saturdays, is there some thinking about the town opening on Saturdays?
This was sent by the town clerk. I have not seen the detail. I don't know what this is about. She was out today, so I have not been able to talk to her about that.
And just to be clear, we're not going to close the warrant tonight, so this
Be
is
my
just an idea
recommendation,
of
if the
what-
board were
we
to
one.
call it, that we would close the warrant 2 weeks from tonight on the 19th, and the board could see the warrant as we see it, as we know it.
Okay. Fran?
I do think it's a good idea to get some of the stuff moving and out of the way. It will make Springtown meeting a little easier. Even though, to just clarify, we were going to have all those, we were going to have zoning changes, right? And then we're not because they weren't ready. Kelly's Corner, is that?
Yes, they were related to Kelly's Corner, and you may recall that the chair of the 2020 committee made a presentation 2 or 3 weeks ago that they felt they weren't ready for fall, but they'd definitely be ready for Springtown meeting.
Janet?
I don't have any questions, but I'm inclined to call a special town meeting, just because of, well, the discussion we had during executive session, and then some of these other things that certainly the stormwater management bylaw, I'd like to get that done. Because if the EPA makes good on its supposed plan to finalize the new regulations come December, I'd like us to be in a position where we can start focusing on those. We're going to have to, and it would be nice to have our compliance in place sooner than with this latest set, so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, originally I wasn't as inclined for just the bylaw, but then even attending the very well-attended public forum the other night, it was Janet, Peter, I, and one general audience member. But no, thank you for doing that, and I did learn a lot, and I think one of the things that came out of that for me is that it is an important issue that I think would be better served at a fall town meeting, in that it's complicated enough that, it's something I think would be good to have people paying attention to, whereas I think it might get lost in the annual town meeting in some ways. So I think there's value to doing it the fall for that. And then also, again, the Kelly's Corner, the 2 pieces, the design funding and the liquor licenses, originally when we were going to do those and then it got put off. I do think now the thinking is that it makes sense to get those done in the fall. Partially the liquor licenses then have to go to the legislature, which will adjourn in the end of July. So, if we wait until April, there's not necessarily a lot of time to get that done. So ideally this would give us a bit more leeway, and then the design funds would mean, hopefully we'd have more information for, we'd get that started earlier and maybe even have more information for the Springtown meeting. So, yeah, I'm feeling generally inclined. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, so do I have a motion?
I'll move we schedule a fall special town meeting for November 10 and 12.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, wonderful. Sure.
This was somebody on one of the committees that I'm liaison to complained that we were having too many town meetings. So I thought I'd put in her. She said it's hard for people to get out, and so I thought I would share her comment while we're here talking about making another town meeting.
I appreciate that. I think obviously it's not an ideal situation, but one of those that there's just been a lot this year that's sort of come up and required special town meetings. So, okay, consent agenda. I will read through these. If you have any you'd like to hold, please say hold. Number 7, approve meeting minutes September 8th, 2015.
I'll hold that.
Okay. Number 8, committee appointment Carolyn Kilpatrick, at-large member, Community Preservation Act Study Committee. Number 9, committee appointment Joan Burrows, associate member, Commission on Disabilities. Number 10, committee appointments Richard Calandrella and Marge Kennedy, full members, Acton Nursing Services Task Force. Number 11, committee appointment Ellen Feinsand, full member, Council on Aging. Do you have a question?
So we're going to hold, yeah, we're going to hold number 8 also, please.
8? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Number 12, fee recommendation, private way plowing. Number 13, request for fee waiver, one-day alcoholic beverage license, Ironworks Farm. Okay, Peter, you held numbers 7 and 8.
Yeah, number 7's a small point. I'm listed as arriving at 7:30. I was late, I admit that. But the dog hearing started at 7:10. I think it probably started on time that night. And I know I was there for the beginning of the dog hearing, and the point is that I voted on the dog hearing, and so I want to be sure the minutes record me as being there for the whole time.
Lisa said she's got you coming in at 7:07. Does that sound okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so
Okay, with
you want
that
a
amendment,
motion?
I'd
Yeah.
move that we approve the minutes for September 8th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And then the committee appointments, we added Walter Foster as well as Carolyn Kilpatrick for the at-large member of the Community Preservation Act Study Committee. And that was on the agenda. It's not on this agenda we have, but the agenda was updated, so he's listed, and I'd ask for that amendment as well to appoint Walter.
Okay, so do you want to move to approve number 8, Carolyn and Walter Foster as at-large members?
Yes,
Okay.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
Any abstentions?
print out my own agenda, so I'm sitting here, why is he holding that? What's the, oh, that's what it says here.
I like that you print out your own.
Oh, you got the updated one?
No, I
prints
print it
her own.
out. I don't use the one that's in the packet, I always print out my own.
And then can I have a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items 9
So
through
moved.
13? Okay, I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstention? Any, no? Okay. No. I'm getting tired. Selectmen reports, were there any questions or additions for any?
Yeah, well, I wanted to remind us again, what I mentioned is that tomorrow morning is at 10 to 12 in the morning is the Climate Change Adaptation Working Group's first meeting of the Magic subregion of the planning area in the 13-town region. And so anybody who's interested in that topic should show up here if they are available at 10 o'clock in the morning, or talk to me, franiola@gmail.com. I also wanted to mention something. I know Ching Sung's not here, but he's, I know, interested in looking into community-wide email lists and looking at a list from Lexington. First of all, I think it would be great if Acton had the type of community listserv that Lexington has. They just have a Lexington Yahoo list, and they talk about all sorts of things on it. And one of the things that I read was that they have a group, they had the minutes, that are talking about helping Syrian refugees and other refugees and how people in the town can help. And it was actually really interesting. I'm happy to share it with anybody who's in the room. It's something I think our town should be looking into and communicating about. So, and if Ching Sung is looking into email lists, I think it's evident that it would serve our town well to have a way that people could communicate about whatever they're interested in.
Great, thank you.
Can I do an update on my?
Yeah.
Since three of us were at the Minuteman meeting, I'm not going to talk about that. Basically, it was the same information as tonight, but a lot more discussion from member towns who are concerned, who want to withdraw, and about all the complicated issues that are behind the scenes. Peter and I both went to Representative Acton's district meeting, and briefly she talked about, she's planning to set up a meeting of district representatives with the chairman of the Elder Affairs Committee sometime before Christmas, probably in Concord, for a discussion of the vast array of services available for the elderly, and she was particularly concerned about elderly safety. There was a pretty extended discussion about Minuteman. And then she mentioned recycling grants went to Acton, to Concord, and to Chelmsford. And Chapter 90 funds, there's some sort of, I guess the governor had campaigned on releasing the funds that had been held back to bring the total to $300 million, but then apparently there's a proposed capital budget that reduces the funding back to $200 million. So Corey said the towns should lobby the lieutenant governor. I don't know why the lieutenant governor, but anyhow. And then there was some discussion about the business, the schools conundrum, because this whole park versus MCAS business, the towns are in limbo because the state hasn't really decided. The unions have added another complication because they say that the new teacher evaluation requirement needs to be part of collective bargaining, because it changes the way that evaluation occurs. And then there was a discussion about the need to encourage local volunteerism. The lack of sufficient numbers of volunteers seems to be a universal problem. And then finally, the opioids epidemic. And apparently a Carlisle mother played a role in the practice now that is pretty routine, or at least in our area, of public safety departments carrying Narcan. So,
Great.
That's it.
Okay.
Last time I mentioned that the fixed route bus was going to start. Did you mention it? I don't know. It was going to start October 1st or October 5th. It's going to start soon in October, but there were some staffing things and other last-minute organization. So it hasn't started yet. I was about to jump on it today to test it out, but it hasn't quite started yet, so stay tuned.
Great, thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much.
Welcome back, Steve.
We've been up for like
God,
24
that
hours.
sounds like a hellish.